Okay, for me, can you tell me your full name?
My full name is Lee, and my middle name is Gertrude, and my married name is Alpert. Prior to that, it was Brown, Brown.
Wow.
And my mother's maiden name was Weinberg.
Wow. Where did Gertrude come from?
Gertrude was my first name, which I changed to my middle and used Lee, Gertrude Alpert.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's nice. And where were you born?
I was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Did you grow up there?
I grew up in Wilkes-Barre through senior high school, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. with a group of girls that entered a part of the government, and we went to American University on a scholarship program.
Wow. What year was that, do you think?
And that was back in 1945.
Wow. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 4 brothers, no sisters.
Wow.
All my brothers were in the service, the World War II,
Wow.
as was my late husband, in World War II in the Navy.
And where did you meet your husband?
I met my husband in Washington, D.C.
And do you have a story? How did you meet him?
I met him, a group of my friends and I used to have a social. Once a week we would go to the YMHA, Young Men's Hebrew Association, on 16th and Q, Northwest. And they would have a rooftop dance. That is where I met my husband.
Wow.
I never knew how to dance, and he was a great dancer. So I asked him to teach me some of those steps, and he did. And his brother he introduced me to his brother and sister-in-law, and then later met his family, who lived in Washington, D.C. He was a native of Washington, D.C.
So how long have you been in Washington, D.C.?
I've been in Washington, D.C. now. I've been married 62 years and worked for the government for 5 years, so I've been here for 67 years.
Wow. Well, did you approach Hy, or did he approach you first?
Well, I think he made a mutual approach. We made a mutual approach. We were standing and talking, and he was standing and talking and looking, of course. And so that is how I met my husband. So I asked him to teach me to dance. And then I didn't have much trouble learning.
When did you both start playing tennis?
Well, actually, we joined a country club after we bought our second home. And it was called the Indian Spring Country Club. It was a first-class club. It had everything: swimming, golf, tennis, and we immediately played golf at first, and then started to play tennis because it was a lot more interesting for us. But my sons always played both golf and tennis.
Wow. And what did Hy do when he was in the Navy? Y'all were both very young.
Yeah, when Hy was in the Navy for 5 years. He was in a submarine a lot of the time. He was in the Battle of Okinawa, and he had enough of it after 5 years. He joined right after high school, so he was, gung-ho for action. And after 5 years, he had enough, so he was honorably discharged, and he came home and started working. He liked working, was very innovative.
You told me a story about how the radio broke and they were lost at sea, and then they showed up. Do you remember that story?
Well, I don't quite. He probably remembered it more so than I did. All I knew was he was a radio man and in a submarine most of the time, sending signals because he was in the SOS class. And they had a lot of the men on that expedition were lost at sea, probably because the submarine was something had happened, and some of them had to be rescued. And it was a real war, and I really can't tell you any more about it. It's just that he was fortunate enough to come home. He came home. He went right to New York and ran into his nieces and sister and gave away his silver heart, or whatever they call it, because he was honorably discharged, and he was in that part of the service. So, but he didn't save any of his uniform or anything. He just liked living in the present and planning some for the future.
Did he talk to you much during the war?
During the war, I didn't know him. I just met him after the war.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't hear much about his actions in the war, excepting that he said he'd been to China and never wanted to go back to China, because at that time it wasn't a very clean country, and he just wasn't impressed with it. So I couldn't go back to visit. Although we did a lot of traveling after he came back. After we got married, we went to many places in Eastern Europe and the Caribbean, all over the Caribbean. Yeah, he liked the water too.
Very, very nice. And what did you do during the war before you met Hi?
During the war, before I met Hi, I worked for the General Services Administration. Part of it was, partly I worked for the Marine Corps, the Navy and the Marine Corps in Arlington, Virginia. Then I was transferred to General Services Administration in Southwest Washington, which wasn't too far from Cameron Seafood, where we went for lunch often. And working for the government, and while you were young and pretty and everything, everybody took you to lunch. So it was pretty nice and easy. I traveled by bus, and partly after that, I traveled by streetcar. That was my main transportation, because I didn't drive until after I was married.
Oh, really?
And I learned how to drive, and have driven ever since.
Yeah,
and I'm
driving
89.
now.
I'll be 89 next month, September
That's
of
very impressive.
16. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know Hi when he was a boxer?
No, I heard about him though, because I told him that my brother had been a boxer, and we used to listen to his fights on the radio. But he said he did some lightweight boxing himself, but he got out of it shortly after. It was too much punishment for him.
I think Kelly told me a story about he was very dark, so he had to have special permission to be seen in public with you.
He ran into a lot of trouble because of his color. He was white, but his skin was dark, his hair was black, and even when he met my parents, they thought there was some mix-up with the postman in his family. So, but anyway, he stayed out of the sun quite a bit, and his skin was not as dark as it was when I first met him, because in the Navy he got very dark. Even his sister couldn't recognize him.
Well, I saw his Navy photo, and he's a strikingly handsome man.
Yeah.
Do you have any photos of you when you were at that age?
I think I have a lot of photos. They're in a big box in a storage bin. I think my storage bin is number 21 in Victoria Place. That's where my storage bin is room number 7.
Well, I saw your marriage photo, and y'all were definitely a striking couple.
Oh, thank you,
Very
thank
much.
you. I was often asked to be Miss something or other, and I accepted an offer to become Miss Shirlington in Virginia. So we had a parade, and I sat on top of the float and everything. And they named the city Shirlington, which they never had. It was just a new city at the time.
Wow.
And I don't know. I think I stayed safe because my mother was very old-fashioned, and she always told me never to go out with, be careful who I went out with, and make sure I didn't kiss them. She didn't want me to catch anything. She was old-fashioned.
And
But when I brought him home, she was very happy to meet him.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's a personable man.
Yeah.
How did he propose to you?
Well, one day he said, "Do you like a big diamond or a small diamond?" And I said, I like a big diamond. So he said, well, okay. That's all I wanted to know. And the next week he had this big diamond he brought over in front of the synagogue that his family belonged to in southwest Washington on I Street. It was an old synagogue there. And he knelt down and showed me this ring, and I thought, oh, it's gorgeous. He said, you know, will you marry me? So I said, oh yes. I couldn't help but say yes. So, not knowing too much about, I dated, but not a whole lot. So I really didn't know if I was ready for marriage, but I did say yes. And so I had to follow up to that promise where I got the ring, and afterwards I wasn't sure whether I did the right thing. I wasn't sure because I didn't know. I guess I wasn't mature enough to know. But I accepted it, and it seemed to work out with a few arguments.
What do you think your secret to success for such a long, happy marriage?
We learned to do things together a lot. As a matter of fact, when he played tennis because I played tennis, he used to play golf. And the people on the tennis court said, after seeing us always together with our boys and everything, used to say, a family that plays together stays together. And he was right, because we did everything together. And traveled and played this and that. Even took time off from work. When I made a reservation at the National Theater or at the Kennedy Center to make sure that he wasn't too overworked. And we would break and take time off to go to a show.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree, which all marriages have disagreements, how would you resolve a disagreement?
We had terrible disagreements, but we weren't afraid to call each other nasty names. And that sort of got it out. Sort of like snake in the grass. Bad. You know, we'd say nasty things to each other. And we were quiet about it for a while, but some or other things happened, and we carried on, and we just, without saying we're sorry, we never said we're sorry. We just carried on and worked it out. You know, if we had difficulty, we discussed it and worked it out.
Well,
worked it out
good
together.
Advice. That's good advice.
Yes.
What do you think your most fun thing to do, or vacation, or destination? What was the most fun time you had with I?
Oh, we used to go on a lot of gambling trips, and they were free. And that's what I liked. Some of the reason I liked to go. And also for the experience, because we would go to #1 places, you know, AAA, or not AAA, but 5-star places in Puerto Rico, England. We traveled mostly to the Caribbean, but we went on gambling trips. And they were first-class places, and I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them because he enjoyed them. He liked blackjack, and I think he played blackjack most of the time. Which I watched and played a little bit, and I wasn't too good a loser, so I only played a little and took his winnings. He was a good winner.
And how many children did you have?
I had 2 boys. One, they were 3 years apart, and I knew immediately that the older one was going to become a doctor of some kind, because we always introduced him to the doctor's supplies where, you know, you examine the heart and the ears, and he liked that. He liked dealing with people. He was a people person, just like his father, you know.
And what is his name?
His name was Martin. We call him Marty.
Marty.
Yeah. And he became a doctor and got married here in Philadelphia. He had met his wife in Washington. And we had the wedding in Philadelphia, and then they moved to California. He did an internship there, and I believe he did it at, what was that place? One of the hospitals there. He did an internship. And they decided they wanted to live in California, which they did. And I always subsidized them, because that's an expensive place to live. And first they lived in Westwood, which was a college town, and then they moved to Beverly Hills, which was a higher class town, and now they live in the Pacific Palisades, and he has an office in Santa Monica. He's very successful.
I know he was on the O.J. trial, O.J. Simpson trial.
Yes, he was on the O.J. Simpson trial. They had him testify, and he told him that he did have a patient who was his O.J.'s past wife, and she always came in with bruises, and he always asked her how she did it, and she just said she fell off a bike. But actually he knew it was more than that.
But he couldn't do anything.
Couldn't do
obviously.
anything, he didn't know. So that was very sad. She lived in part of Santa Monica where she lived. I passed her house a lot. Mhm.
So tell me about your other son.
Oh.
I met Marty once,
Yeah.
briefly,
See,
and
right.
tell me about Bob.
Neither one of my sons had to go to service. It was just a period when they didn't need them, and they went to the University of Maryland. They both graduated at Maryland University. I don't know what happened to Bob. He got mixed up in the crowd, the wrong crowd, and when they traveled, I think they got into it was a time for marijuana and LSD. So he had some shipped to the house. And from then on, he was always in with the wrong people. And I think that's why we always had high hopes of him becoming a lawyer. But he started to become, but his wife, his future wife then, talked him into getting married, I think. But it wasn't a bad idea, because he thought he would go into business with his father, which he did eventually. So he worked hard. And he went into business with his father, and they made a very good living together. Although his father subsidized both boys, so he's very generous, and spoiled them both.
Well, you're definitely a tight family. I can see that.
Yeah, we were a tight family anyway. We traveled a lot with the boys. We took them to the finest restaurants here, Washington, plays, whatever. They have nothing to regret.
I know that you spent a lot of time with Kelly and Dana. Tell me
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
They also traveled a lot. And, of course, everything fell on my husband's shoulders. He subsidized them, too, because they went to college, of course. And that cost a lot of money. And between the father and my husband, they both had to pitch in to make it. You know, it takes two to make it. And I didn't work because my husband never wanted me to work. He said I would interfere with the taxes. So I didn't mind. I just played a lot of tennis. And I enjoyed it. It was a lot of camaraderie. And I stayed on schedule, you know, came home and we had dinner. And then sometimes we would go out to dinner, or sometimes. It was a very good life.
So they lived with you for a period of time, didn't they? Kelly and Dana?
They actually spent a lot of time with us because they did go to their schools in Bethesda. They lived in Bethesda, and they went to some fine schools there. But they didn't live with us. They just spent a lot of time with us.
So they had a room, but it was for
Yeah,
when
whenever
they
they'd come, they'd go to. They each had a room because they were available, and we spent we spent a lot of good time. We had I got them tutors, and I got them private lessons in tennis, and they both became very proficient in it. And they just were very likable girls. They had nice personalities and very happy, which I think is wonderful to turn out as good as they have, having had a father who divorced 3 times. So they really didn't have it easy. And I don't deserve too much credit because I think the credit belongs to them. They made it happen, but I actually helped them make it happen.
You're a part of it, for sure.
I was big part of their life.
And we're still going through it with them right now as we speak.
That's right. As we speak, the father is got him with the wrong person, and he's on pills and addicted.
And you're trying to help. Kelly's trying to help.
I'm trying to help Kelly, who has she's been amazing. I don't think I could make it without Kelly. I mean, I would have a hard time. And I feel that maybe somehow I'm getting paid back for being so generous with my grandchildren and children, that my grandchildren are now paying back what we gave them, in a way. Even more so. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, they definitely love you.
Well, I love them, and I would do anything and give them anything. I'd give them my last cent if I could, if I had it. But also, I offer them things that they just don't want. I have all these collections, and they don't want it. But I really have to give it away. I don't want to give it to anybody except them. So maybe I could make them understand that later.
No, I would leave it to them anyway. They just want you to have it.
Oh, they want me to enjoy it. I'm always afraid I'll leave and it'll go to the charity here.
Is this something you and Hy did together? Collect things, artworks?
Oh, my husband was a big collector on bronzes. He loved art. He loved paintings of different people that of a period of sort of antique things. And I always said I really am not a favorite of antiques. I like more modern things. But I let him get what he liked, and we got a lot of bronzes, collected porcelain paintings, and the old antique ones that were over 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, we had those. We sold some of that stuff.
Did you get most of it in the United States or while you traveled, or both?
Well, we had a friend who was even a bigger collector than we were, and he would get his ideas from a friend of ours, and sometimes he would even buy stuff from him. Like, his friend had quite a collection. He really had. His wife actually went into the business, and I helped her a little bit. But it's like who you deal with, who you surround yourself with, as to how you'll turn out. And, I think there's a lot to that.
For sure. I told that to Bob yesterday.
Oh, you did?
You have to be very careful.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there are people here at Riderwood, most of them are, I would say, fantastic people. We have scientists here, teachers, professors, and but even people who have just been in business they're very, very nice. I don't know whether it's the age group or what it is, but we have a few women that are a little bit off color, but they have to be told off, and then we're fine.
You're a member of what is called the Greatest Generation. What do you think makes it the Greatest Generation?
Well, years ago, we didn't have all the shootings that's going on now, all the killing and the murderers, and all the burglars and people being shot to death for no reason. We didn't have that. I mean, we could keep our doors open and have our relatives come in anytime they wanted, and we'd always have food on the table for them. But everybody was welcome at our house. And we had 5 boys, and my mother cooked. She was a hard worker. She cleaned and cooked, and my father worked hard. He was a carpenter, but he built. He worked on homes, new homes, and renovated and things like that. And in those days, they didn't live too long. Well, he did smoke also, but he died early, like at 57.
Wow.
That's early.
That's very
My
young.
mother lived till 87, which wasn't too bad in those days. Here at Riderwood, people are living to over 100.
What were your grandparents like?
I never met my grandparents. It was the wrong time, I guess. They were involved in that, in Adolf Hitler's days, when he got rid of all the Jews. They probably went to a prison camp and died in Auschwitz. where they gassed them, and that's what I think happened to them. We had really. I met my aunt and uncle, who were from the same family my mother was with. They settled all in the same city, Wilkes-Barre, and they didn't live as long as my mom, but I remember knowing them. They were very, very nice people.
Were they in Germany or Poland, or where were they from?
Well, see, they were from an unfortunate area called, it was Hungary, Budapest, and that was divided into different republics, I think. They made them into, different people took them, like the Czech Republic and
yeah.
the Russians. So, but because my husband's parents were born in Kiev, Russia, and that's a town where, you don't exist. I don't think you hear much about it because it was taken over. A lot of those towns were taken over and then divided, but we had a lot of wars, but we didn't have when we had kidnapping, I remember years ago, but we didn't have the killings. It was horrible killings and bombings that we have now.
It's
really a dangerous time. You can't go out at night like we used to, because that's the worst time to go out.
How did your parents come to the United States?
When my parents came over by boat, like most of the people did, they came right into New York, to the Empire State. And then I don't know why, they decided on Wilkes-Barre. I guess all the people from their area moved here.
And when was that, you think?
Oh, that was, I know my father was born in the late 1800s, so this was in the early 1900s. And they had a son, my oldest brother was born there, and they brought him over.
It's good that happened. You might have gone to Auschwitz too.
That's right, if they had stayed, I never would have been here.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is good timing and good luck, and by the grace of God, I guess.
What is the most surprising thing from the 50s, would you say?
The most inviting?
Surprising or interesting
Oh,
thing about the 50s?
in the 50s, if I can recall, I was born 1927. I guess in the 50s I wasn't in Wilkes-Barre because I graduated in 1945. So I married about 1949. So in the 50s it was my first few years of marriage there. And I had a little boy, little Martin, and then 3 years later I had Bobby. So it was a life that I adapted to very easily. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the neighborhoods with their little kids. And it was one of those growing up periods and meeting new people.
Was that the most fun part of your life, you would say?
Yeah, because I met my husband's family lived there also. So we did things together. And my husband had a lot of good friends. And we went out with those people. So it was a very, very, very interesting time. Nothing dynamic, but interesting.
How about the 60s?
Now in the 60s, 1960, well, my sons were born in 1930s, so 60s, they were probably getting ready to go to, 30s. They were probably getting ready or out of college, so they were interested in getting jobs and becoming someone, getting married themselves. So that was interesting because we were planning trips and we were planning weddings and things like that.
What did you think about the Beatles?
About who?
The Beatles, the rock group Beatles.
Oh, the Beatles, yeah. I had heard about them, and there's still one of them, I think. There's still one left, isn't there?
Two.
Oh, there are two of them. Yeah. They were always, I thought they were very good. I'd been to England before, and I always liked England. And the Beatles, being from England, interested me. They're still good.
They're still around.
Yeah, they're still around.
What did you do during the 70s for fun?
In the 70s, let's see, that was the 50s, the 60s. so the next 10 years. We just traveled a lot. Went to California.
Okay, we're on.
Are we on?
Yep.
Okay.
It stopped automatically.
Well, my favorite thing was going to California to see my son and his family in California. He had 2 daughters, Lindsay and Ashley, and they were about 5 years apart. But nevertheless, I took them and played tennis with them all day. We liked to play tennis, so and they became very good tennis players. The oldest one, Lindsay, won a scholarship to Berkeley on a tennis scholarship. Well, not because of me, but she took lessons out there from a well-known trainer.
Would you say she's better than Kelly? Because Kelly's really good.
Kelly's really good, and I wouldn't say she's better. They both hit the ball as professionally as they can, as you see on TV with the professionals. And I can't say one is better than the other.
Well,
but Kelly is definitely closer to me. So, I mean, I'm a little partial.
So
I
you're
like
pretty good
everybody.
too. Well, I think Kelly said Chelsea Clinton, Bill and Hillary Clinton's daughter, played tennis at the same school at the same time.
Who was that? Kelly played tennis at the same school?
I think so.
Oh.
Or maybe the same circuit.
Yeah, she went to a very fine school. She went, she had good grades too at Whitman, and she had the right people, to grow up with.
So do you think that Kelly got her love of art from you guys?
Well, she got some of it. She got her business sense from her grandfather. Her grandfather was a great business guy, and he knew what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So he built big apartments. One happened to be next to the Watergate in Virginia, and he did a lot of real estate investments. And he had a large group of investors in Baltimore that he dealt with. I won't say all of them went well, but most of them did. And so he did very well for himself. It's that he subsidized so many of our children, even the ones in California, that we didn't get to keep most of that money. But we spent it wisely.
You spent it where you wanted to spend it.
Yeah.
Good.
And he never really wanted to put it into tax money, so he did the right thing, I think.
Well, Donald Trump is famous for avoiding paying taxes.
Yeah.
A good business person knows how to do that.
Right. He was born in November, so he was a Scorpio, and so he was very aggressive, but he wasn't openly as aggressive as Trump, but he was aggressive enough to really control his business. He did very well. I'm proud. I was always proud of him. And of course, ever since I learned to dance, so I don't know if I became a really good dancer, but because he always expected perfection on the dance floor. And I just like to enjoy myself on the dance floor. Just keep time with the music,
If you had advice for Kelly's in the other room, if you had advice for Kelly and then also advice for your grandchildren, what would it be? Or your great-grandchildren, grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Yeah. Well, I can only say that time changes, and every generation, each generation seems to have it better, which is a good thing. And sometimes you look at it in your generation type, and you can't go back, you have to keep going forward. And I think my grandchildren have done very well. I'm very proud of all of them, all 4. Even though I'm not as close to the ones in California. Well, something did happen after my husband died. We had a very tight will called, it was a irrevocable trust, which meant that you could not sell your house. Nobody could sell it. It was tight. I could only sell it, I think. I'm not sure, but my financial advisor told me the only way I could change that was to change the will. So, but you have to get everybody to sign it, and my son in California did not want to sign it. He said, Mom, you can just keep it and go on trips, spend it all, and have a good time. Travel, do what you want. So, but Bobby said, no, we got to keep it safe. He said, let's change it. And it did cost a lot of money to change the will, but we finally changed it to a revocable trust, which meant that we could sell the house, which was a good thing, because I had to sell it anyway. And I don't know if I got off track on that, but I was proud of all my children, but because of that incident, I became a little bit further away from my son and his wife in California. But
I can see.
it's all right. The boys never got along too well after that either. But we still respect each other, I think.
What is your secret to living so long? Not that you lived at the end, you've got plenty of years to go still, but what is your secret for having lived so long?
Well, so a lot of people, when they have a problem, they dwell on it. Somehow, even if they don't have a problem, they create a problem, they dwell on it, and you wonder why these people have, as they say, bad luck. It's their own doing. Well, actually, I take care of my problems in the best way I can. And I don't dwell on it. As a matter of fact, because I take care of them is because I don't have to dwell on it. And I keep going to, I'm very negative, I'm very positive, and I don't keep negative feelings inside. I'm very positive.
And you have friends too, right?
And I have friends, and I think positive, and I just enjoy, if I don't have anything to do one day, which is unlikely, I still enjoy it. I enjoy nature, or taking a walk, or I'd rather be with friends though. I like people.
I know you're taking classes and things, but are there things that you still want to do?
Yes, I take Current Issues, which is a great class here. It's done by Prince George's Community College. And another iPad class, Getting to Know My iPad, which is something I've always wanted to do, getting to know it, you know. So I'm always interested in different things. I like to ask a lot of questions if I don't understand. And I just enjoy being active.
I think that's the secret.
Yes, take exercise classes and things that make me feel good is what I, even eating, I don't like to overeat. And I just like to eat healthy and stay well and enjoy. I think that's the secret.
Is there anything you would like to say to your great-grandchildren, like Wyatt, Hudson,
Yeah.
Sloan?
I just hope that each one of them has a very healthy, happy, long life. And after that, they'll do well, I'm sure. If they're healthy and happy, that's the main thing. That's very important.
Well, thank you for this interview. This was a great gift to all of them from you and to me.
Well, thank you, Everett.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I want to be proud that you're my daughter, my granddaughter's husband.
Thank you.
And you've been a very important part of her life. So,
Well, I'm glad you could fill me in with some of your life. I
Thank
wish
you.
I'd done it with Hi, but I'm very, very glad you could sit down with me and
thank
share
you.
this.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for your help. Thank you.